Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff of our Destination Series. We're really glad that you're here with us today. While I was a student in Texas, I had an opportunity to speak at a church that was west of Fort Worth. So with directions in hand, I get in my car and I head out Interstate 20 out west of Fort Worth, Texas. So the directions told me I'd get off at a certain exit, so I got off at the exit and I turned left. And drove a few miles and began looking for this church, but couldn't find it. So I saw a man on the side of the road. I stopped and asked him, "Sir, do you know where this church is?" "Well, yeah, I think it's up that way. If you keep going further, you'll find it." So a few more miles down the road, still couldn't find the church. So I pulled into a convenience store, went in and asked the clerk, "Ma'am, do you know where this church is?" He said, "Yeah, I think you're going in the right direction. Just got to keep going further." Back in my car, a few miles further. By this time I'm out in such a desolate area, there's nothing but just cows and chickens. So I'm thinking if there's a pastor out here, he's got to be Dr. Doolittle who can communicate with the animals because there's no people around here. So I decided it's time to backtrack, turn around, go back toward that congested area around the interstate, pull up to a traffic light, roll the window down, ask the guy next to me, "Sir, have you seen this church around here?" "Well, I reckon it's here somewhere," he said, "but I'm not sure where." That was not a lot of help. Next traffic light, asked the next guy, "Sir, have you seen this church?" He said, "Yeah, if you go up to the next light and turn left, you'll see it down on your left." So I went up, turned left, wrong church. By this time, I am really frustrated, okay? It's 7:10, and I'm supposed to get up and speak at 7:15. So I decide what I'll do is I'll take out the directions and look over them again. So I'm going over them in great detail, just line by line. And much to my surprise, I discover when I got to the bottom of that interstate ramp, I was supposed to turn to the right. Now, in my own human opinion, I went left. I talked to people who kept me going left. When I backtracked and went back to the place I was supposed to be, went to the right, the church was just one block off that interstate exit there. So I was listening to all the wrong voices, starting with my own. And that man who gave me the directions to his church knew a lot more about how to get there than I knew, but I failed to carefully follow his instructions and ended up going in the wrong direction. Now, let me ask you, how many of you have trouble with directions? How many of you get lost a lot? Just raise your hand. Go ahead. Be proud. I can identify with you. I've been lost several times in my day. As someone who's been lost a good bit, there's a few just observations I want to share with you about those of us who have trouble with directions. The first one is people who are lost, they never get lost on purpose. That evening when I was looking for that church, I didn't get lost on purpose. That was not my intention. You might think that we just don't pay close attention. But it's never really our intention to get lost. We don't mean to get lost. We don't get lost on purpose. Second observation, that you don't know where you are, or you don't know that you're lost when you're getting lost. If we knew where the line was that we crossed over and we came from that zone where we're headed in the right direction, cross the line, you're getting lost, we just back up 100 feet and then redirect our paths and then we'll be back on the right direction. But you don't know where that line is, and consequently we typically go a long way in the wrong direction before we even realize that we're lost. We can make great time, be going real fast, but moving in the wrong direction. So you don't know you're lost when you're actually getting lost. Third observation is simply that whatever road you're on determines where you will end up. Whatever road you're on determines where you'll end up. You will end up where the path you are currently on is taking you. Not necessarily where you intended to go. You'll always end up where the road you're on is taking you. Now, if you can understand those simple little concepts and you're beginning to understand this principle of the path. The principle of the path, namely, is simply this: its direction determines destinations. Now, we conveniently put it on a little insert in your program this morning, so you can stick that up on your refrigerator for the month of July and just kind of keep this big idea, this series in mind. Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, she followed this principle. Remember, the good witch told her that to start from the beginning and then just follow the yellow brick road in order to reach Oz. Dorothy encountered several obstacles along the way, but she never got lost because she kept moving in that direction that she had been given. Now, understand that this is a principle that we're talking about this morning. You don't invent a principle. You discover a principle. A principle is true whether you cooperate with it or not. It's still a truth. For example, the principle of gravity is true whether you like it or not, or whether you cooperate with it or not. If you jump off a high building all the way down, you can say, I don't like this principle of gravity. I'm not going to cooperate with it, and smack, you're going to hit the concrete below. It's in play, it's in operation, whether you like it or not. So a principle we don't invent, we just discover. Now, that's true with this principle of the path. This is a simple idea that just explains why so many people get lost along the way. It's a principle that's at work in our lives every single day, but it's a principle that's behind the scene. Often we're not conscious of it in operation. But once you get your arms around this principle and understand it, then it will empower you to identify and follow the path that will lead to your desired destinations. Now, if I expanded the principle just a little bit, I would say direction, not intention, determines destination. Where you intend to end up may or may not be where you actually end up. It's your direction that determines your destination. It's your direction that's the determinative factor, not your intention. Saying, but this isn't where I wanted to end up. I don't like where I'm ended up. I'm in pain. These are difficult things I'm dealing with. Okay, that doesn't change the fact that you arrived there because of the direction that you were moving. So to get from where you are to where you want to be requires time, and sometimes it requires a change of direction for us. No matter how loud you declare your intention, if you're not moving in the direction of your intentions, then you'll never end up at that preferable destination. Now, as I've told you before, I grew up in Alabama, just a couple of short hours from the Gulf of Mexico. So as a teenager and young adult, we were all the time going down to Gulf Shores and Orange Beach and Pensacola and Destin and Panama City. So let's just say that next week I wanted to get back in touch with my roots a little bit. I wanted to go down to the beach. Summer's hardly a summer for me if I don't get a little sand between my toes. So I can tell all my friends that I'm going to the Gulf of Mexico, to the beautiful white beaches in Gulf Shores, Alabama next week. I can get my swimming fins together and my goggles together and pack my swimsuit and my shorts and my flops, throw in a little sunscreen. I have all the intentions in the world of going to the beach. However, if Monday morning comes and I get on Interstate 75 and I go north, I'm never going to get to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, that's the principle of the path. It's direction that determines where we end up. Hardly a week passes that I don't deal with people that are in crisis. And they're brokenhearted. They're in a lot of pain over where they've ended up. And as they roll out their story and describe for me the choices they've been making and the direction they've been moving and the path that they've been on, I have the greatest urge and temptation to say, well, what did you expect, right? Those were the choices you were making. That was the path in which you were moving. My hopes and dreams were not in that direction, but that was the path I was choosing. So we can get angry at God or someone else with the difficulty that we're experiencing. We think that our intentions, we think that our hopes, our dreams will somehow trump or supersede or override the path that we're on. But this path principle, it trumps, it supersedes our hopes and our dreams every single time. If you're on the wrong road, it really doesn't matter what you believe. If you're on the wrong road, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. You're never going to end up in the Gulf of Mexico if you're headed in the wrong direction. So the paths we choose impact us more than our motivations. Now, I'm suggesting to you this morning that we're all on paths of some kind.